Hi. So in this video, we're going to add the code for the personality quiz project in the App Development with Swift course that Apple provides. So if you haven't already, make sure you watch part 1 where we set up all of the UI. Let's go back to our project, and here we are in Xcode, and we have our main storyboard, and we've got, if you zoom out here a little bit, we have 3 view controllers, and we have a navigation controller that handles the navigation between these two. And so far, we've added all of the UI. We need to do some data to represent the questions that we're going to be asking and the answers that are selected and managed. So first, let's create a Swift file that handles all of our data. So we're going to right click, and here I am within the folder, and I'm just going to say new file, and I want this to be a Swift file, and go ahead and choose next, and we're going to give this a name of question, Q-U-E-S-T-I-O-N, question data, and we're going to save it within the main folder and go ahead and choose create. So within this file, we're going to do the following. We're going to create a couple of a struct and an enum to represent the data. So we have a question struct, so I'm just going to start struct question, and it's going to have a variable text, which is of type string, and a type, which is going to be a response type. Now we haven't created this yet, we'll get there. And then we're going to have a variable of answers. And it's going to be an array of answer. Okay, we haven't created these yet, so let's go and fix that. So let's create an enum for response type. And that's going to be, we're going to have 3 options. We have single, multiple, and ranged. Those are our question types. So we see the error, of course, it says, hey, I don't know anything about answer, so let's go ahead and fix that. So let's add another struct called answer, and that's going to have a variable text, which is a string, and then it's going to have a variable type, and the answer type we're going to choose is animal type. So this is an enum that we're going to create. Does that make sense? So here we are, we're just going through. So we're going to say this enum is an animal type, and it's going to be a character. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can select an emoji, which is a character type. So a character, and we're going to have a few cases. So we have dog, which equals, and then remember we want an emoji, so remember how to get there. We press Control Command Space, and then it brings up our emoji text input. I'm going to arrow past that, and then we're going to say cat equals, and then Control Command Space, and we have cat, and then I'm going to say rabbit, and the same thing, rabbit. And finally, turtle. And turtle. Okay. Now, we also are going to use a definition property for the animal type so that it provides the result text. You remember we have a label where we're going to show kind of the result based on their responses. We're going to say you're a dog or a turtle, and we're going to have text that explains why. So to do that within this enum, we're creating a variable called definition, which is a string. And here, whoops, opening curly, and then from here we're going to make a switch against self. And what we're checking for is if we are listed as a dog. I kind of went a little quick. Let me back up. Sorry. So here, let me back up. Sorry. I got ahead of myself. I was coding like I was the only one in the room. Okay. So if we type switch, and notice we have a switch statement as a template. If I press tab, it gives me the template. Now I can enter values, and it's waiting for me to enter these blue values. When I tab, I'm tabbing between those, whoops. I'm tabbing to the next piece in the template that needs to be filled in. So for the value that we're checking against, I'm going to say self. I just press tab. Now I want to press tab again. And the case is, remember when you use a dot syntax, it's going to identify, because we're in the enum, it knows, okay, what are the cases of this type? And we're going to say if it's dog, and I press tab, so it auto-completed. Now I press tab again, then I have the code. So here I'm going to say return, and I'm going to set a string. I'm just going to read this from the book. You are incredibly outgoing. You surround yourself with the people you love and enjoy. Oh, and enjoy activities with your friends. Okay, now I typed that kind of quick. You can certainly pause the video, type all these answers. You know, I try to code at the same time that you would be coding, where you could follow along, but there's a lot of text in here, so just be patient. If I get ahead, just pause, look at the book, follow along. Hopefully this is explaining things and giving you some insights in how to do it. Okay, so we've got that. Let's next add another case. So I'm just going to go case, and whoops, I don't need the colon. I'm going to say dot cat, and I press tab, and then now the colon, then I press, and now we're going to say return, and the text for cat is mischievous yet mild tempered. You enjoy doing things on your own terms. I think I could relate to a cat, maybe. Although I don't like cats. Well, I take that back. I like cats. I love cats. Just not their hair all over everything. Anyway, I won't get into politics, will I? Okay, here we go. Another case. Case rabbit. And you're going to return, I'm just looking at my notes, you love everything that's soft, you are healthy and full of energy. Wow. Nice little positive reinforcement here. Then finally the case of turtle. Return. You are wise beyond your years and you focus on the details. Slow and steady wins the race. Cool. And we don't need a default, so we'll go ahead and select that, because this is an exhaustive switch statement, right? Because we're handling all of the possible cases, and because we're in an enum, there's no other cases defined, we know that it will never be something that isn't already defined. Very good. Okay, so this represents the data that we have so far. I want to press Command S to save this, and let's go to the question view controller. In the question view controller, we want to set up a questions array object. And the questions array is going to contain different types of questions and the options available to them. So if I come up here and I say var questions, and I say this is going to be of type question, whoops, question. Notice how it auto-completes, so I'm going to press tab, and then equals, and then I'm doing an array literal, which means I am doing the square brackets, and then I can start typing in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a number of questions. So I'm going to say question, and it's the text is, which food do you like the most? That's our question text, and then the type is dot single, and then the answers, which is an array. Whoops, use the opening square bracket, and then we're going to say answer text is steak is one option, and the type is dog. And then we're going to have another answer, which is a text, which is fish. And then type, guess what? Cat. Yep, you guessed it. And then another answer, and the text is carrots. Oh, you'll never guess this one. Type rabbit. You're good. I didn't think you'd get it. No, I knew you'd get it. Okay, whoops. Answer is text corn. Oh, that could be anything, huh? And we're going to do turtle. Okay. So that represents one question object. Let's copy and paste this. Let's put a comma after this. So it's kind of hard to read, but so here's my array, and here's the first object in the array. The first object is all of that. So I'm going to just copy this and paste it a second time, and then press return and paste it a third time. So it's a little easier, so I don't have to type every little thing again. Now I just need to change the text. So for this second question, this is which activities do you enjoy? Now here, this is, the type is multiple, and the options are going to be swimming, and swimming means you're a turtle. I didn't know that. I guess they do like to swim, huh? Sleeping. Ooh, I like sleeping. You're going to be a cat. Oh, that stays the same. I guess I'm more of a cat person. I don't know. I didn't know that. Cuddling means you're more of a rabbit. Hey, look at that. And then corn, which is, we're going to change that. Eating is the last one. And then you're a dog. Okay. Very good. Last question. How much do you enjoy car rides? Okay, the text is, so this is, the type is ranged. Ranged is the type. And then the first option, we say, I dislike them. And that would be a cat. The next is I get a little nervous, and that type is going to be rabbit. Then we're going to say I barely notice them. Means you're a turtle. And then the last one, I love them, means you're a dog. Awesome. Okay, so here is our list of questions, our array of questions that we're going to use for the quiz. Obviously, you can add a lot more questions, and you can go through and come up with all sorts of fun questions and answer choices, and then come up with the results. Next, in order to track which question we're currently on and which question to show next, we need a variable to allow us to track, and it's going to be an int. So we're going to say var question index equals 0. So as we go from one question to the next, we'll increment this question index, and then we'll know which question to show. At this point, in order for us to interact with the question view controller, we need to hook up some of the controls to our question. I'm going to go ahead and save, so I just press Command Save. Let's go back to our main storyboard, and let's zoom in here. And with this, we've got our stack views, and in order to identify which one we're referring to, let's go ahead and select the stack view that has the 4 buttons, and let's open the assistant editor. So if you come over here and it says show assistant editor, notice that because I am selected an object within the question view controller scene, which is this whole thing here, it knows that the question view controller Swift class is my code. So now when I have these selected, I can now connect these controls here. So I want to control drag from, so I have this one selected. I'm going to press Control, and I'm going to come over here and insert an outlet, and we're going to call this single stack view as an outlet, and click Connect. Next, this one is the multiple stack view, so I'm going to press Control and click and drag and add a reference to this one, and we're going to call it multiple stack view. Press Connect, and then the third stack view, I'm going to press Control, click and drag, and here we're going to call this ranged stack view. Okay, so now I've got my 3 stack views connected. Now we can hide and show them based on the code and the question types that we're showing. Let's do this by creating a method called updateui that gets called when view did load. So here in my view did load, I can type in and I can just say update UI, and of course this doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to go ahead and below this I'm going to create func update UI. I said func with an N, just so you know what I meant. F-U-N-C. All right, keep it clean, people. Next, the update method, we will go ahead and set up the initial view for everything in our question view controller. So first, we need to hide everything, because we don't know what the first question type is until we tell it to. So first, by default, let's just, we're going to say single stack view dot is hidden, and I just press tab equals true. And then I'm going to do the same for, and notice again, where I'm just referring to these up here. So I'm saying multiple stack, and so now I have that. I'm going to press tab and tab until I get it. Dot is hidden, notice the tab, and then I press tab equals true. And finally, ranged stack view dot is hidden equals true. Okay, now we want to update what is called the navigation item title, which is what would show here on the top of the screen. Notice we're in the navigation view. I want to call out one thing. Here we added a title, and you know, we manually dragged in an item label for the navigation item, but you don't necessarily have to do that. We can call, because we're a navigation view controller, there are properties by default that are available to us, and one of those is called navigation item dot title. So I can set the title on this view controller using that property. So I'm going to say navigation item, and notice how it's available to us here, dot title, and we're going to set this to question number, and then we're going to put in a string interpolation to take a variable and turn it into a string, and we're going to say question index plus 1. So the question is, why do we say question index plus 1? Well, remember that the array index starts at 0. So if I were to, because I want the first question, I have to set question index to 0. Well, 0 as an integer doesn't mean anything when you say, hey, here's the first question. So we add plus 1 in order to get question number 1, which is what we want to show. Okay, next we say let current question equal questions. This is a variable that, whoops, come on, square bracket questions question index. So this returns, so remember we have our questions array, and so we're saying let current question equal questions question index, and then next we're going to write a switch statement that says current question dot type. We're going to switch against the type, and so if it is single, then we say single stack view. You see where this is going, dot is hidden equals false, right? And then we say case dot multiple. I bet you know what to do. Whoops, I pressed tab too many times. Let me go ahead and do, I can actually go ahead and delete this default because I don't need it. Okay, case multiple, and we're going to say multiple stack view, and I'm just pressing tab, dot is hidden equals false. And I'm pressing the backspace to go back a tab. Notice when I'm doing that. So I say case dot ranged, and you guessed it, range stack view dot is hidden equals false. Okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and run this. So with the target selected, and then just pick a phone. Here we got the phone 10R, and let's run it. Okay, here we are. Let's get started. Begin personality quiz. Question number 1. Perfect. So that worked. And label button, and progress. Okay. So far what we have hooked up is working. Obviously we got a lot more to do. So let's go back and stop this. So we need to create outlets for all the various items in order to turn things on and off and update the text and respond to button states and various things like that. So we're going to create quite a few of them, and let's just go ahead and get started here at the top. I want to give myself some space below the IB outlets here, and let's just get started. Now, because we have all of our stack views, all of our items here, and notice how everything's kind of, you can see everything is grouped together. Just go with the hierarchy here. This view shows everything in relation to where they are and where they belong. And when you select them, you'll notice that it highlights them here in the storyboard, but obviously we can't just click and drag. So there's a couple of ways, we've probably looked at this before, where I can right click, and I can notice so if I right click, then I get this context, and then I can say new referencing outlet, and I can click, and then I can let go here. That's one way to do it. The way that we've been doing it so far is we press Control, and then we click and drag, and we do that there. Same thing, different ways getting there. Okay, so let's start by updating the question label. So let's select that, and let's just Control drag, and we're going to call this question label, and go ahead and press connect. Then we've already got the single stack view connected. The book identifies placing things in relation to the stack views that they belong, so that's one way to do it. So if I come over here and I give myself a little more space between each one, then as you add items, you know, you can do that. And here we're using a hierarchy of, you know, how things lay out visually top to bottom. So I could actually just, let's just move this. I'm going to press Command X. Let's just go ahead and move this to the top and put it right here. Okay. Next, we have our single stack view. So our single stack view is right here. So we have a button. And again, we're keeping track of these. So I want to make sure I do go in order. So I go from top to bottom. So press Control, click, drag. Whoops, I just did it in the wrong spot. And someone just said, hey, that's the wrong spot. We want single stack. We're going to call this single button 1 and single button 2. So we're just using simple names, real concise. I'm going to skip ahead. You guys can do this yourself. You know what's happening. So through the magic of television, I'm going to skip ahead to where I have everything already connected. Something I want to call out, notice that for the stack view labels, we're only going to use individual names for the labels because we want to modify those. But the switches, we're not going to modify because we're going to have the switch call a method. So be aware of that. Notice that the ebook says just give an outlet for the label. So if I control and I come down here to my multi-stack and then I multiple stack and I say multi-label 1, then it goes right there. I'm going to give myself a little more. I like it. I like things grouped. Okay, so just be aware of that. So all I'm doing is the labels and multi-label 2 and so on. Okay, so now it should look something like this. And again, we're organizing things in our code visually as a visual representation, kind of as a hierarchy between these. So we know these 4 buttons represent these buttons. And notice how it's really helpful that Xcode, when you've labeled it and connected it to an outlet, it changes the title so that it's easy to know which one you're talking about. Next, let's go and update our updateui method to address some of these items now that we have outlets for them. So after we have the current question, we also want to have the current answer. So we say let current answers, whoops, there we go, answers equal current question dot answers. And then we're going to calculate the total progress. And to do that, we're going to say total progress equals, and it's a float. And so the float is going to be the question index divided by a float. What we're doing is we are casting these values, so questions dot count. What we're doing is we're casting. The reason we say float is because we're going to get a decimal value. We have a question index and then we have the questions count. And when you divide, there's a potential for a decimal, and so that means we want to treat these as floats. Right now they're treated as integers, but we want to treat them as floats because the total progress value is a float, which means it has a decimal percentage to update this view right there. Okay, next, we want to go ahead and also update the question the question label and the progress view. So we're going to say question label dot title equals, question label dot text equals current question dot text. And then the question progress view, which we created there, dot set progress, and we're going to say total progress. And so I'm just pressing tab again to get these. And then animated is true. Okay. We haven't used current question answers yet, so we won't worry about that warning. And let's take a look at the next steps. Okay, next we need to update the question based on which question type we've selected. We need to update the stack. So we're going to create some methods here. So the first ones we're going to call update single stack, and we're going to say using, these methods haven't been written yet, so we're just typing it as we go, current answers. I use the down arrow and then I tab, whoops, current answers, come on. Current answers, there we go. Then the next method is called update multiple stack using current answers. And then finally under ranged, we're going to say update ranged stack using current answers. Okay, so we need to create these methods. So for the update single, so we're going to say func update single stack, and we're going to say using answers, which is an array of answers. Okay, now I want to go ahead and just type these other function names because it's going to continue to give us grief while we're typing. So let's just go ahead and create these. Update, in fact, just copy, well, let's just, we'll just type it up. Update multiple stack using answers, which is an answers array. Someone is probably saying, what about this other error or, oh, because it's not answers, sorry. Sorry about that, it's just answer of type answer. And then somebody else is saying, Brent, why don't you just copy and paste and then change it? Well, I didn't think of that. Update ranged stack using, using answers, answer type. Okay, very good. That'll get rid of those errors. So, what do we do for the single stack? When we update it, we get the array of answers, and we need to populate the text based on the array of answers. So we know that we have single button 1 dot set title answers 0, which is the first item, dot text. And then we're setting the state, which is normal. We're setting a title on the button. Oops, don't need a space there, sorry. We're setting the title on a button. When you do that, there's different button states, meaning whether the button is selected, disabled, pressed, things like that. And normal just means when the button's sitting there, show the following text. And that's what we're doing here. Next, we're saying single button 2 dot set title. Now here, let me back up. Here is where I would copy and paste because this, paste, paste, paste. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just make sure you update your numbers properly. 3, 4. So what I'm doing is I'm typing and then I press the down arrow and it puts me in the character right below, which is nice. And then I go down and then I backspace and I press 3. See how that goes? You figure out shortcuts, and there's a lot more shortcuts. People, I use my mouse probably more than I should, but it works for me. I've been doing it for 20 years. What am I going to do? All right. One other thing we're changing. Notice how we've set the stack view and we have the method. If you look in the book, when you look at the code for this and it says update single stack, it notes that the this property has been moved. So go ahead and press Command X and let's move that down here. What this does is it cleans up our code so that we're referencing a method and there's no other action outside of the method, because we want everything to happen within a method. That way we can update it in one location. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, Command X, and paste these into the appropriate spot. Okay, and then I'm just going to remove the extra space. Okay, very good. So now for multiple stack questions, we need to do the following. We're going to change the multiple labels. So again, it's very similar to the button, but instead of a button object, we're using a label object, which has a little easier to use property. So we're going to select multi-label and press enter, return. Then .text equals answers 0 .text. Okay, now I'm going to copy, select, press Command C, Command V, Command V, Command V. 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to change the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to change these numbers. 1, 2, 3. So then for update ranged stack, this is going to behave a little differently. Notice that for the range, you remember we've only got two selections, two options for them, whether a beginning and an end value. So in order to make sure that the code doesn't have any errors, if we ask for an answer that doesn't exist or that is outside of the scope, we need to do this a little differently. So what we will say is ranged label 1 .text equals answers. Boy, I can't tell you, spelling answers is so much fun. Answers dot. And we're going to use a property of the array called first. And so we're going to say first as text. Okay? We're going to do the same. Range label 2 dot text equals answers dot, and guess what? There's an opposite one called last. And that is treated as text. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Go ahead and let's run the app. Let's begin the personality quiz. And hey, check it out. Which foods do you like the most? Well, I like steak, I like fish, I like carrots, and I like corn. So what does that make me? Besides overweight. Okay. We've reached a good stopping point. So in the next video, we will go through and finalize for the results and finish up the personality quiz project. Thanks for watching.